The Perch, UTC's landing station, utc.edu/the Perch.
The Perch, UTC's landing station. Today we have a special guest here with us today. It is Dan Lothian. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for my segment today, I feel like we should talk about how media has changed from the 80s to now, and you have a lot of experience, so I think you're the man to tell us.
Throwback Monday. Yeah, you know, there's so many changes. I mean, you look just from the technology that we had at the time. We were using cassette players, and I think 8-tracks were maybe just out. You could still find a few 8-track players. But we didn't have this sort of mobile society that we currently have.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that you were doing, the most mobile that you could get, it would be in your car.
Mm-hmm.
And just in a short period of time, you started seeing, you know, the fact that you could have these telephones that initially were big and bulky, but you could at least roam around with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, a short period of time after that, they started shrinking. I remember, this was a little bit past the 80s, this was the early 90s, but I ran the Boston Marathon, and a friend of mine worked for Motorola, and he was in their cell phone division. And he was able to get me one of the early versions of the flip phone before it was out there on the market, so that I could use it during the marathon to run and report for the local station. So I had it on a band on my arm, and they could call me up, and I did, I think, 6 or 8 reports while I was running the Boston Marathon. And I remember people would, when they asked me, like, what is that thing that you have? And that was the StarTAC, I think it was called. It was just this little tiny flip phone. But it was amazing how we went from these giant, bulky kind of pieces of technology to something small and mobile. And that was only, I mean, I thought we had reached the very top at that point, and we were only getting started.
So would you say that technology, as an employer, makes you have your employees are available 24/7 to reach them? Does that take a toll on the employee at all?
I mean, there has to be some level of intrusion in your life. We expect people to respond to emails when we send them, not when they're in office hours. So that, I think, it probably can cut into someone's personal life. Certainly I've heard, I've heard this in my own family, that when you get put down the BlackBerry or whatever device it is that you have, but at the same time, and one of the companies that I'm involved with, we don't have an office, and it's a growing company, and people are able to work from home or work from on the road somewhere and still do interviews by phone and still do great work, good quality work, and technology allows that to happen. And
just so much faster now.
Exactly, and before you had to be, physically in an office where all the infrastructure was there for you to do your work, or at least go out and then come back to that office. Now you can work from pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, we'll have more after the break. The Perch, UTC's landing station.
Former CNN White House correspondent Dan Lothian, thank you again for being here today. I know that the question that's on a lot of students' minds right now is the question of what are you going to do if you don't know what to do with your life? And I know you have a little bit of a different experience about this, but just tell us a little bit about your background in school and how you felt going out of school and into the job market, and then maybe a little bit of advice for students who may not know what to do.
Right. Yeah, and mine is sort of a little bit odd because I knew very early on what I wanted to do. I caught the bug when I was a very young kid. My parents had a gospel show, and I would sit there in the lobby and see all the leaders and everything. I was excited about it. And then years later, my dad was in radio, and I had a chance to get on the air when I was 16 years old, and I knew I wanted to be in some form of broadcasting, and eventually I switched over to television. So my case is a little different, but the one thing I would suggest to people is try a lot of different things. There's some people who early on will say, I think I want to do this, and they just kind of flirt with that thing. But cast a very wide net and volunteer and do as many internships as possible. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do, but I was always doing internships at whatever radios. I didn't care what it was. I wanted to be in the environment so that I could learn as much about what it was that business did. And so that's kind of my biggest thing is get around it, volunteer, And then network. Network like crazy, because you can be very talented, but in the end, you have to have connections in order to move up.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We will be right back after this song with more from Dan Lothian. This is, once again, the Perch, UTC's landing station.
The Perch, UTC's landing station. I'm back here with Dan Lothian, former CNN White House correspondent. So can you kind of talk about the positives and negatives of life after CNN?
Well, it's for me it's been mostly positive, and I think sometimes for people who've been in the business as long as I have, it's hard to step away from the daily grind and the excitement that comes with it. But I wanted to do something. For many years I've been working for other people, and I wanted to see could I do this for myself? Could I build content and in the end own the product? And so that was what was driving it for me. And it's very difficult. It's fulfilling because you have your own business, but being an entrepreneur is a very difficult thing because there's never an off switch. You're never off of work. You're always on. When someone needs you, you have to do it because they're not these other people who will deal with it. You have to deal with it. And so that's tough. And I think for me, the negative part, I've always been attached to a major organization. And so if you were trying to get an interview, you would say, oh, I'm with CNN, or I'm with NBC, or local TV, you're with one of the local stations. Now, when you mention you're with heartbeings.com, or if it's someone from one of the other publications that I'm attached to, it's people have to figure out who this is, what it is. Now, I do get away with the fact that people recognize who I am, so you have a little bit of credibility that comes with it. But I think that the negative has been that you have to get used to a world without a big network behind you. And if you've never done that before, that can be a little daunting.
Yes, definitely. So kind of, can you explain what you're doing now in your career as far as like your entrepreneurship endeavors and just other things that you're involved in?
Sure. So kind of to run through of everything that I'm doing, I still do a little bit of TV. I'm a contributor with the PBS show Religion and Ethics News Weekly, and that's what got me to do a special in Cuba at the end of May to early June. In addition to the stuff I do with them, I'm a political analyst with the local PBS station in Boston. I have a media company which handles all kinds of production work, both for corporate production as well as it handles the stuff that I do for PBS. I'm a co-founder of the positive impact website heartbeings.com, an investor in the online legal journal Texas Law Book, which focuses on business lawyers. And I've got a couple other little things that I'm doing as well. So I stay pretty busy. All of it is in the media space and getting a chance to do just the things that I'm passionate about.
And I know another one of the things that you've been doing is you're a fellow in residency here at UTC's Communication Department. Can you kind of explain like how that's been?
Yeah, so I'm a journalist in residence, visiting journalist in residence here at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. And I love it because it gives me a chance to be able to pass on some of the things that I've learned in my journey. I've been doing this now for quite a while. But it's not just a one-way street. It's also a chance for me to hear different perspectives from the next generation of journalists and those who are in the communication field coming up, whether it's public relations or advertising, whatever it may be. And so I get to learn something as well. So I come into town 4 times a year and do lectures here on campus, and then at the end of the school year, I'll have a panel discussion. Last year was on politics in the 2016 race, and this year we haven't announced exactly what it is yet, but I know. And so it's a chance for me to be on campus and to, again, try to encourage young people who are going to be the great journalists of the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today and letting us interview you. This has been the Perch, UTC's landing station.
The Perch, UTC's landing station. This is Olivia here with Ashley. Thank you so much for joining us today for our COM 1999 live show.
Yes, today we had the pleasure of interviewing Dan Lothian, and Kaylee talked to him about media in the 80s versus now. Olivia got to talk to him about careers and professionalism and some advice from him. And I got to talk about his career and experience from being at CNN to what he is doing now. So be sure to tune into our show next week, and Olivia has some more information on that.
Our next show is going to be October the 12th. It's going to be a breast cancer awareness show, and we have a special live caller, Gina Brown, who's not only a former radio personality and currently a singer, but she's also a breast cancer survivor. So be sure to tune in. That's October the 12th. Once again, thank you so much for listening. This has been the Perch, UTC's landing station.